agenda, we do have two items that were tabled and not called, and they are personal services agreement. And the first one is E200, which is a personal services agreement between the county Department of Purchasing and Universal Management Technology Solutions. And the other one is E227, which is a personal services agreement between the county of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Office of the Nassau County Controller and RSMUS LLC. A motion to untable by legislator Noel, seconded by legislator Capella. All those in favor of untabling E200 and E227 signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Are you leaving?
Okay, let's go for the first one, and the first one is E200, the personal services agreement between the Department of Purchasing and Universal Management Technology Solutions. Someone need to talk. Come on, just go. The on table, they want to do it.
It's not.
Okay, let's go.
Michael Sherlock, Director of Purchasing. This actually is an agreement from the IT department. It was originated by the IT department. We were part of the group that asked for it. It came out of the executive branch, which was some way to find savings for the county as far as negotiated contracts for the county.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Cleary, do you have something to add?
Well, I can speak to it a little bit. This is Robert Cleary, Director of Carbon Compliance. This was solicited as a strategic sourcing contract. The intent is to save the county money, which is not a bad thing. It is leveraging vendor information regarding private sector markets and identifying potential savings based on that information. There are not any other capacities in the county at this time to really do what that contract does. And it has more potential, I think, than has been realized, frankly, although it has realized some real benefits.
Any comments or questions? Legislator Georgie.
Hi, I guess the obvious issue we've had with this contract in the past is the question of what impact it would have having Mr. Barsky as one of the principals of this company.
Well, as has been mentioned previously, he recused himself from any involvement in any county business once he took over at Dyke. So I don't believe it's had any impact whatsoever. I'm not aware of any interactions whatsoever in this regard, and as that he did in writing recuse himself.
But in recusing himself, does he then preclude the opportunity of him benefiting financially from this type of contract?
I believe his recusal also reference that he should not benefit in any way from the contract as well.
But we don't know for sure, right?
Well, he has put on record in writing that he will not, that he's specifically directed his company not to have the benefit in any way, shape, or form from the contract.
Not to have him benefit, but his company can.
That's right.
Which, right, it is an indirect benefit if your company benefits. Now, does NYPA have to approve this contract?
That will be determined by the controller's office. I don't know if it was reviewed by them previously or not.
Yeah, if we could get an opinion on that, maybe from the controller's office, that would be helpful. I'm just going to go on the record saying, whenever you're on a board that's, regulating the county's finance, I just can't see how we can be giving any contracts at all. And recusing, I understand, but there's so many different levels, and not only that, but just the hint of impropriety, just with the basic fact that he is on the board, or he is a principal, and on the NIFA board. I don't think it's the way the county should be going in this direction.
I don't know, I don't have any specific examples. I've been advised that in certain instances, certain members of the legislature are on boards of companies that the county does business with, which is also a case of recusing themselves from those reviews.
I don't know anybody that would have, there might be people that work for the company, but not in a situation I know of anyway that would have gained a financial, possibility of a financial. I mean, that's what I'm worried about, but I don't have to continue on with it, but basically I don't think that this type of arrangement looks good for the county.
Can I ask, what is your concern as far as the contract is? The whole idea of the contract is to save the county money. And if they find ways to save the county money, they get a commission on the savings. So the question really is, what is the problem?
Okay, I'll take a shot at that. Mr. Barsky is in a position where he's very much involved with the county and how it's spending finances, how it's spending their finances.
Okay.
And for us to be giving his company, from which he's still a principal, any form of income, whether, you could say you recuse yourself or not, we really don't know.
What happens has nothing to do with it. I would request them to look at a potential contract of ours and find ways to save the county money.
Listen,
My whole function is to save the county money.
I
Why
understand.
would I not want to save the county money?
I have no problem with that intent. What I have a problem with, which is what we've been living through for a while now, is we have to be very careful with who is given contracts from the county. And if there's any chance that someone who's somewhat connected to the county in any way, shape, or form benefits financially, or their company benefits financially, it not only looks bad, but it's a real conflict of interest. We've had this happen time and time again in the last 8 years. And maybe, he recused himself, but we don't have any backup of that recusal. We don't know for sure he's not benefiting financially. I mean, honestly, seeing what's been going on in the last couple of years, I don't know how that could be a question, to be completely, with all due respect.
First of all, legislator,
Legislator Reggie Whitten, thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, if there are no other comments, public comment regarding this issue, all those in favor of E200 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Okay, so we have, what, 2 nays? Okay, 4-2. So the contract passes 4-2. Now for 227. All right, you have to, listen, you go get your shirt. The last contract that was on the table. Oh, God. Sir, you were sitting here for a while.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Good
Hey, hold
afternoon.
on, I didn't call it. All right, the next contract that was untabled is E227.
So excited.
Personal services agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Office of Nassau County Controller and RSM US LLC. And now it's your turn.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Sergio Blanco, Deputy Controller. I'm here on behalf of the county for a contract with RSM. They perform our comprehensive audit of our financial statements as well as our single audit. This is a 2-year contract along with some additional services. Are there any questions from the legislature?
Anyone? Okay, Legislator Georgia Whitten.
I'm earning money. Keep this
You're
right now.
earning your money, huh?
Okay, the main question we have with this is
Untabled, untabled.
it's untabled. So, I'm sorry, okay. Basically, what you're doing is setting up a company that's going to be used for the controller. now through December 31st of 2018. I don't understand why we wouldn't wait for the new controller to make this decision.
I understand that, but there's a need for this contract now. If we don't have this contract approved today, in fact, the county has significant risk to not only federal funding, but also our bond rating could be impacted if we don't issue our CAFR late, if our single audit is late. Now, it is a 2-year contract, but there is a termination for convenience clause in the contract, and we have discussed with the vendor, and they are amenable to that. So if the new controller would like to terminate the contract and go back out to market, he would have the ability to do so.
All right, so that's good. So there's absolutely no time that he has to wait before he can do that?
He would be bound for 2018, again, by failing
For
to...
the full year?
For the full year. However, for the second year, he would be able to terminate the contract and go back out to the market. And failing to do the 2018, again, would have significant financial consequences of the county. It's for the 17 audit. When I say 2018, it's for the 2017 audit.
Oh, okay, so, all right. So I understand what you're saying. There are some things that have to be addressed prior.
Yeah, training December 7th begins, so it is very critical that they get these services beginning as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or representatives? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor of E227 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The item passes 4-2.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, now let's go back. Okay. Right now, there are a number of items that are part of the consent agenda, and these items were vetted in different committees, and again, I ask that we incorporate them by way of testimony. All right, the first item is 448. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's a 448 is the item number, 449, 450, 458, 459, 460, 461, 462, 463, 464, 465, 466, 467, 468, 469. Okay, and I don't know if there's any. Okay, on the addendum is item 470, 471, 472, 473, 475, 476, all right. Okay. All those in favor of the items I just, moved by legislator, Ms. Jones, second by legislator Capel. Hold on. I know Mr. Budnick is standing right there ready to cook. Okay. I'm calling on you, Mr. Budnick. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable members, I just have a question on number 459, a resolution, et cetera, agreement and license with New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, et cetera, in relation to a new environmental education and resiliency center. What is to be physically, or is it to be physically, someplace, somewhere in the county? And what, okay, I'd just like to know some detail. Thank you.
I'm trying to give you an answer, Mr. Budnick, since you've been sitting. Mr. Budnick, you want to hear the answer to your question?
Yes.
Okay, it's going to be a site at the Hempstead Lake Park for young explorers, okay?
Thank you.
All right, that's what
Thank you,
it's
thank you,
for.
thank you.
You're welcome.
My compliments to you, as always.
Thank you, Will. Okay, here we are. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments or questions from the legislators? Any public comment? And thank you again, Mr. Gordon. All right, all those in favor of the items that were called, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, the items passed unanimously. Now let's go to the There are a number of appointments to the Commission on Human Rights and other organizations within the county, and we're going to call those appointments by consent, which is item 65, 16, item 121, 16, item 277, 17, item 303, 17, item 304, 17, item 375, 17, 376, 17, 397, 17. I'm sorry. No, eliminate 397. Okay. 452, 17. 453, 17, 454, 17, 455, 17, 456, 17, 457, 17, 458, 17. Wait a minute, okay. I'm sorry, I have a check mark. Okay. 47717.
Okay.
Okay. Moved by legislator Bell, second by legislator Mascarell. These are all appointments to, as I said, the Human Rights Commission or other organizations within the county. All any questions or comments regarding these items that were pulled? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, these items pass. Any abstentions? Okay. Does that mean, you and Felix? Okay, so it's 4-0-2. Is that correct? You got that? All right. No, I'm talking to right now. All right. Go on to.
Yes.
On 397.
Presiding officer, I wanted to explain the abstention.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm abstaining, and I think it's the position of also my colleague, that we're abstaining, not because necessarily of who the people are. It's about, again, being 11:57 at night, and all of a sudden, these appointments show up. And so there's serious concern about the approach, and so that is why we're abstaining at this time.
Hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to the. Okay, item 397. A municipal agreement with the village of Bayville in relation to a project to purchase a digital communication sign for the village. Moved by legislator Nicolau, second by legislator Control. Okay, who's talking about it? Anyone here to talk about it? Man, where are you? Rebecca Rashidi. It's an IMA grant.
Madam Chair, that is a CRP generated from one of the legislators' office, I believe Ms. Donna McKenzie's office, and I just processed it, and it's before you now.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Rebecca? I don't know if you can answer it.
I can answer them.
Okay, legislator Bernal.
So my question is, where are the CRPs for legislative district 2? That's my question. And legislative.
Legislative, they've all been filed.
Huh.
Once the IMA is signed and I have all the paperwork, they're filed with the clerk's office.
It seems like they get filed, but they never make it onto an agenda.
We got one more time. December 18th.
Oh, you're gonna give me a Christmas, you're gonna give legislative district 2 a present?
Huh?
You're gonna allow these things to show up on the agenda?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But there's a possibility.
All right, well,
Okay.
as long as there's a possibility,
There's
there's
always a
hope.
possibility.
There's hope. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, presiding officer.
Can I just
We
give
do have, and I know, okay.
Can I just
Say what you
say,
have to say.
Fran, I'm going to give you a compliment. I
Oh.
have to say your office has been a pleasure to work with.
Oh,
And you're
thank you
very
so much.
organized, and I know you've worked with my assistant, Tony Castle. I appreciate it, and they are all ready to go. We just need them called.
Ready to go, legislator. Thank you for the kind words, I do appreciate it. And Tony's is great to work with, she's wonderful.
Let's go. Any other comments regarding 397? That IMA with the village of, there you go. All right, any public comments on this item? There being none, all those in favor of 397 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh. I don't see that. So it's 6. 6-0. Okay, let's go. Yeah, oh, yeah, it's very important. All right, I'm going to call 451, which is a reappointment of area, Look to the Nassau County Commission on Human Rights, moved by legislator Capel, second by legislator Mascarell. Okay, yes, I know, and that's why we're talking this separately.
Thank you.
Okay, legislator Rhino.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Some time ago, Curia Blue's appointment was on the agenda, and then, but it wasn't called. And I know that I was on record making quite a bit of noise about the fact that it was pulled. And no one could ever tell me why it was pulled. And then now it mysteriously shows up like at 11:50, now it's even later, 11:59. And so, again, in the spirit of just, not appreciating the approach, it is with under great duress that I'm going to abstain from this. But I think it's wrong that she was pulled from the initial agenda some months ago, because I had witnessed Curia Blue's labor in this community. She had just had a beautiful event here on Friday night in recognition of World AIDS Day and some other things that she does. Yes, and I think it was a huge injustice to her that she was pulled some months ago. But again, with great pains, I'm going to have to abstain from this because I think the spirit of the movement is wrong.
Any other comment? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor of 451 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? 2 abstentions, okay, so it's 4-0-2. All right. I know who she was, but I don't know what to do. Probably never reached this.
No, it was on the agenda, and it was, we went over it, not only her, but Mr. Ahmed from the Islamic Center was also on the agenda that day, and somehow those two, for some reason, it didn't get called.
I don't remember. All right. Okay, the first item on the agenda was 216, which was vetted in the Finance Committee, but it is now part of the consent calendar, and this is an ordinance allowing termination pay to be paid in a single installment for certain officers and employees. Are there any further questions or comments? I'll move by legislator Nicolao, second by legislator Capel. Any further? Go ahead.
Just to let the finance comments be on this record, but I also agree with my colleagues here that I think this is something that could really hurt the 2018 budget, and that's exactly not the direction we want to go in. I think that's the only reason I can see it happening, honestly. So I would really implore everyone to not vote for this, and that's all.
Frank, I think we should incorporate the testimony by way of reference from the Finance Committee. Okay. Any other comments? Any other public comment? There being none, all those in favor of 216 signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Somebody say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes 4-2. Moving along, you have 474, an intermunicipal agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Nassau County Department of Health, and the County of Suffolk, acting on behalf of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, in relation to Ryan White Program implementation. Moved by legislator Mascarell, second by legislator Capel.
Good afternoon, Mary Ellen Lorraine, Department of Health. Item 474-17 is an intergovernment agreement between Nassau County Department of Health and Suffolk County Department of Health for the Ryan White HIV/AIDS Treatment Modernization Act. Sorry, I have laryngitis. Nassau County Department of Health is the grantee, so this will allow us to enter into the grant.
Any questions or comments for the legislators? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor of 474, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And the item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. All right, the next item is 478, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Parnell to be possibly by the county executive to the Nassau County Civil Service Commission. Moved by legislator Nicolau, second by legislator. Okay, does anyone speak on behalf of this appointment? Fran, anyone who speak on this, Judge Fox speak to the civil service?
Mr. Foskey is currently our county attorney. He's a great guy.
Yes, and is he going to be,
Is he going to be? Yes, he's ready to serve
okay, he's ready to serve?
and willing.
And that means he's no longer going to serve in two capacities?
It seems that way, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm putting it on through, I guess. Someone had a question. Legislator George, you with him?
What is his salary going to be?
Can I find out for you?
I guess for full ledge, I know, I believe that the minority leader might have a few other questions at the full ledge also.
Legislator, would it be possible to get that information for you for the next session?
Anything is possible, yes.
Would that be
Thank you.
okay? And I'll
Of
make sure.
course.
What salary and what other questions?
That's all
Just
I
salary?
have, just what his salary is going to be. I think
Okay,
that
I'll
should
get
be-
that to you and your council.
Okay, legislator Bynum, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Just, who will he be replacing?
I know the person's name, but I can't recall. Can I get that for you too? I apologize. I think this was on the addendum and I was a little unprepared for it.
Was that person's term,
Yes. In fact, that person's term had already expired. The person, I forget, begins with an S.
okay, so if you could give me what that person's name is and what their term was?
Yes, be happy to do that. I appreciate your accommodating me.
And was there a resume for Mr. Foskey? I know that, of course I know but I'm just trying to see if there's some unique experience that he's had that qualifies him to be the one person that was chosen to sit on this.
I really, honestly, being a county attorney, the resume is definitely submitted, but
Okay, all right, I'll look at the
a
resume.
few people who know this county better than he does, having served here for so many years.
Yeah.
And also they're responsible as the county attorney for civil service as well, so.
All right, there was something recent with civil service.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah, that's right.
in-depth involved in.
Thank you.
Okay, but legislator, I will get you the resume. What was your other question?
No,
Yeah,
I
who's
wanted to know
replacing?
who was he
Who's replacing?
replacing
And
and
the
what was the
term.
term of that person? and how
Okay,
long
I will
they've
have
been
that
on the board.
information to your council as well as to the majority.
Thank you very much. Okay, any public comment? There being none, all those in favor of, looking at it, where are you? 478, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, we got a 4-2, right? 4-2. Okay. Sorry. It's okay. Hold it in.
Right. Make sure you do the sunset. Okay, all right.
Okay, here we go. Again, it's part of the agenda, as item 479, A resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an administrative consent decree and cooperative agreement with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation in relation to the Bake Park diversion project and additional work. I move by legislator Nicholas and by legislator Muscarella. Okay, I think this was vetted in Public Works, and again, as a testimony from Public Works should be incorporated into this. Okay, are there any other questions? No, you okay? You got it all? All right, we can move on? Okay. Yeah, it should have been a consent, right? All right, all those in favor of 479 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, it's 6-2. All right, 480, a local law to amend the county government law of Nassau County to establish an independent office of Inspector General for Nassau County. Moved by legislator Nicolao, seconded by legislator Capano. Now, I'm going to be very brief because I know that we're going to probably have quite a discussion at the full length regarding this item. But this is, I would say, is an attempt on the part of I guess, the majority to try and come to a bipartisan piece of legislation. But you have to remember that this item before us is a version of the Inspector General that is similar in most respects to the version put forth by the Democrats several times over the last 2 years. And many of those comments are incorporated in the legislation. The key difference in the two proposals is the source of the appointment and whether this office will fall under the executive branch of the county government or the legislative branch. The Democratic proposal, adopted for the most part by the legislation before us, grants sweeping powers and authority to the Inspector General. The nature of these powers are, in our opinion, inherently legislative in nature. For a very long time, we emphatically voiced our concerns as to the accountability of this office and heard from our colleagues across the aisle as a need to be independent. So for this legislation to progress, a balance must be struck. The proposal before us would create this office as a legislative office, similar to the Office of Legislative Budget Review, whose selection is by the legislature and whose appointment is subject to a majority vote of the legislature. The Democrat proposal makes the Inspector General an appointee of the county executive, subject to a supermajority vote, selected via committee consisting of representatives of the county executive majority and minority. The term of the Democrat proposed Inspector General is 6 years, and the one being put forth by the Republican delegation is amended to include a 4-year term. I have little doubt that our proposal is as equally inaccessible to the Democrats as theirs is to us. And I'm sure we are going to hear a little bit more about this in the coming days. I had the opportunity to speak with the minority leader this morning. I gave my heads up on Saturday, letting him know that this legislation was being filed Friday night, and that we will continue the dialogue between now and when this will come to a vote, a full legislative vote on the 18th. But to temper those voices of discontent, in fact, I made this offer to the minority leader to sit down and discuss what this office will come to on January 1st. Let's get it done in time so that the additional processes and procedures occasioned by this law are absorbed into the new administration's work product on day one. This county can withstand no more gridlock over this issue, and we are prepared to turn the page. As I said to you, I do intend to continue this dialogue with the minority, and as I had stated to the minority leaders on Abraham. So that's where we are at this point. We want this to go forward, but we also want to be something that both sides can agree on, because it's very necessary that we get rid of the logjam. And that's exactly what's happened. And that's why I said, come the 18th of this month, there will be a special rules committee. All right, so a lot can be done between now and next week. And so here's hoping that we have reasonable minds can disagree and also agree. So without any further comment, I don't know what you want to do. Okay, legislator, sign off.
Thank you, presiding officer. This is indeed a good day. I'm excited and happy that we will be working together to have a final bill that hopefully we can all be very proud of. I think the community and the residents of Nassau County have spoken and asked for this, and I'm happy that we are answering the call to action. I'm hopeful that as we work together and as our legal counsel will come together to work on this, that one of the things that we will look at is the fact that the appointment is made by, the appointment and then I guess the termination of that individual is made by a simple majority of the legislature. And while I think it's very trendy for that to happen at this point, being that we have a Republican majority and a Democratic county executive elect, I think that over time, as we could see this situation change, in 2 years we could have a Democratic majority, and 2 years following that we could have a Republican county exec elect. So I think we should consider doing something that is not trendy for the moment, but would be timeless, in so much that we would have a supermajority be the ones that would ultimately confirm the appointment, and be the ones that would be able to terminate the contract or agreement with that individual, so that it could stand the test of time, and that this really would be a piece of legislation that would not need to be modified or repealed if the political winds were to turn. So that would be something that I would be very anxious and excited to work on. And so I look forward to these next few days of these two parties, these two caucuses coming together and working on that. I know that my colleague has some comments that she'd like to share and some issues that she'd like to identify. So I'll yield the floor to her if you don't mind.
Okay, legislator Division.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I second my colleagues' comments, which is that we've been hoping for this for so long that we're happy that it's being entertained, and more so that the need is being recognized, because the real problem I think we had with the commissioner investigations and some of these other positions that have been put in place are the basic lack of independence. And what I think we really have to be careful going forward, and what I know we're going to want on this side, is to ensure that complete independence is present in the IG. Otherwise, this is really just a waste of time, in my opinion. It has to be real, and people know what's real. I know that a lot of times when we talked about the IG, we talked about how they actually work for the county executive, and they also are dependent upon the county executive's role as far as him being, or her being the person to be able to fire the IG. If you really want, it is a turning point. I think this could be an incredible time for Nassau County. I think if we do it right, it can be. If we do it wrong, and it's just another layer of something that's ineffective, which is what we've had in the past, and doesn't do anything to prevent things such as the ABTAC, then not only are we wasting our time and our money and our resources, but we're insulting the residents of Nassau County. The fact that, number one, the funding isn't independent is number one. That's really concerning me. Again, we really need it set up correctly. Number two, as Legislator Bino addressed, we can't just have the majority legislature choose this person. I really think it has to be a super majority rule. Otherwise, again, this is not only for us, this is for the residents of Nassau County. They've endured a lot in the last 8 years, and I hope we have to do it right, or else it's really not anything better than what we have right now. As far as funding the office, we'd like to work with you on that as well, because it's something that we need to figure out. We have to have transparency with that as well. Again, I know, look, when I first heard this, I wasn't happy in the sense, because I just felt that without the independence, it's really going to be, I don't know, I want to say disappointment. So I hope that you keep your word. I know you will, but I hope that you understand how important it is to us with having this be a joint venture and having both of us, along with our attorneys, reach the point that we feel this is a legitimate bill. Yes, and if we can, I would be very happy to sit down along with my attorney to the Majority Council this week, if he's available. I'd rather see this even not happen immediately, although I really want it to happen, and just wait to have it completely right. And I think, again, the major thing is the independence and who approves the IG. All right.
All right, is there any comment from the public? I think everybody's gone. All right, there being no other comments, and again, hopefully something will be done. Our councils have heard your concerns, and we start working on it this week. We don't have much time in which to do this. If we want to bring it before the full-edge on the 18th. All right, there being no other comments or questions, all those in favor of moving 480 onto the full legislature signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and I guess it's no. Now the next item, and I think that Legislator Birnbaum is happy to see this one. I may have introduced it, however, I'm going to suggest that it would be a full legislative sponsorship. Right? Both sides of the aisle will sponsor the legislation dealing with item 481, which is the legislative approval of acting department heads. Something that Legislator Birnbaum has submitted, and most of it, if you look at the legislation, most of it is legislation that you submitted. So if there's any comments now, I would move by Legislator Nicolello, second by Legislator all right, is there any comments or questions you want to?
I just had a comment.
All right, yeah, okay.
I have one suggestion, which is that we amend this so that after the initial 6-month period for acting commissioner, that if county executive wanted to come to the legislature, they could, she or he could request an additional 6-month period. One 6-month period, the full legislature would have to approve it. Just to give a little bit of flexibility and retain our ability to control it.
Right. Okay. No, we can't do that.
We're not doing it now, just
No, we
because.
just bring it.
Can I have?
No, he's not making an amendment now.
No, that's not amendment now.
What would the approval be by?
Super majority, you said, or unanimously?
I actually didn't get that, so. So that's not unanimous, I don't think.
Not to be.
In other words, explain why.
Well, I mean, as I said, it gives a little bit of flexibility in case they need additional time in the search for finding a commissioner that could be appointed. But so that there'll be one initial 6-month period for the acting commissioner, and if the county executive needed additional time, they come before the legislature, and the legislature then approves an additional final 6 months. So it just builds a little flexibility in.
I know that Legislator Birnbaum's not on this committee, but out of courtesy.
No, she did a great job.
Would you like to add something?
First, I want to thank Norma for recognizing the importance of this legislation, because I think it would really tighten the government better. I think we'll have more qualified people in positions, and I think it will really act to move the county forward in a positive direction. So I thank you for that. And I would be very proud to be a co-sponsor with you if it's the exact bill. We're all going to be sponsors. Okay, the entire legislature. That would be great. And listening to the possible amendment, I think that would work if the county executive is the one to come with the request to do the extension.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, okay. Any other?
Thank you.
I have one more question along that lines. Is that okay? So,
Reggie Wood.
is this like retroactive, like as of today? I know like Commissioner Reiner has what, like 4 or 5 months already? That's what I wanted to have on the record. So this is going to start January 1st, so it will be 6 months from January 1st for any acting commissioner.
I think it should be clarified that that would be the case.
I think that's important because we don't want to run into that with him. And what was his question? Sorry. Okay, and we just have one more other clarification I think is worthwhile. We just want to make sure that like, the nomination could be done like the next meeting after, you know, the appointment. All right, so.
Oh, not
Right.
to hold up nominations.
In other words, if somebody's nominated.
It should be counted.
Okay, would you do me a favor?
Put it in writing, all right.
Okay, and just pass them on, and we can, if we have to amend before, the 18th, we can do it, all right? So just whatever you have
Right, that would be.
expressed just now, do it. Okay, are you ready to go home yet? Okay, all those in favor of 481, signify by saying aye. Okay, it better be unanimous, otherwise we cannot all sponsor this.
Congratulations, Ellen.
All right, okay. Let's tell me, I got one more item.
Madam Chair, may I just interject one thing while you're looking at that? I just wanted to mention that Mr. Foskey is, the salary would be $20,000. Mr. Foskey is retiring on December 28th. His term will begin on December 29th, 2017, and will end May 31st, 2022. This, by the way, is all in the resolution, which you'll eventually see. I don't yet know who he's replacing, but we'll have that for you.
Okay, we have another item. Frank, I'm sorry. Item 482, the ordinance authorizing the county executive on behalf of the county of Nassau to execute an amendment to amended and restated policy and rates between the county of Nassau as landlord and Nassau Event Center, NEC LLC, as tenant of certain premises located in Uniondale Town of Hempstead County of Nassau, State of New York, said property known as Section 44, Block F, Lots 415 and 351 on the land and tax map of the county of Nassau, and authorizing the county executive to execute all pertinent documents in connection therewith to consummate the lease. Move by legislator, Nicolò, second by legislator. Explain. Who's gonna do it? Who's gonna explain? Oh, I didn't, okay, I thought I saw that, okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Myers.
Good evening. I thought you forgot about me.
No, I was back there.
I was hiding back there. So I am here to speak on this item. It's Josh Meyer, West Group Law, 81 Main Street, Suite 510, White Plains, New York, 10601. So this is the proposed amendment. What we're doing is extending the deadline for the tenant to enter into the agreement with the minor league hockey team until December 31st of 2018. We're also addressing that the parties are going to agreeing to cooperate in good faith to execute the development of the structured parking garage utilizing the grant from the Empire State Development Corporation. So those two items are in the proposed amendment.
Just the second item, where did that come from?
That's
I
just,
thought we were just extending the AHL requirement for a year.
right, this one is just an agreement for the parties to cooperate on that. It's just a single paragraph in there that just says that the Empire State Development would like to see continued momentum on this, continued as they process the
What do you
paperwork.
mean by cooperation?
So it's just very general to say that, right now, the issue with that is that the...
We need a contractual amendment to say that we're going to cooperate?
We don't, we're just saying that the Empire State Development Corporation wanted to see some additional evidence because the county received the grant for $85 million, the approval for the $85 million to come from Empire State Development to develop that parking garage. Right now, NEC has site control there, and so they just wanted to see something that said that the parties were agreeing to cooperate to construct that parking garage on the site.
They're worried that we won't agree?
It's just further evidence that we're going to as they process the paperwork and provide the funding agreement for that to the county. It's basically an agreement to agree.
I think we have to look at that. I mean, you know, we got this a few hours ago. No chance to look at it. We thought we had an agreement on one item, and now we find there's a second item. It's just, I mean, there should be some disclosure to us. So, I mean, so we have to take a look at it. We may have to.
We're almost done here, but we don't like being surprised.
Only when somebody's really nice person. You know about it? Yeah.
First part. Both parts?
So as I indicated, it's just an agreement to agree on that, just to say that the parties have worked together to in the development of the parking garage.
Are you agreeable?
Can I just do one thing?
Oh, go ahead, I'll just say that to Richie Whitman.
Sorry, it's never that easy. I understand that, going back to the first part, with allowing the hockey, you know, another year to find a hockey team, we were supposed to possibly be told of other things that had been progressing and has been bringing in revenue other than the hockey team. We're supposed to get a report, I believe. Do you know anything about that?
No, just my understanding was prior to the December 18th meeting that would be discussed, but that's all, in terms of a financial analysis, yeah, that was just my understanding that would be prior to the December 18th meeting. And that would need to be.
Well, how prior, like the day of? Because we really would like to I'd like to see that pretty soon, only because we're kind of giving them a pass right now with the hockey team, which was a big part of this. And if it's true that other concerts or whatever made up for it, we really would like to see that as soon as possible.
Right, so I would like to clarify that issue, exactly what you are looking for. So, and just to clarify on this, it's a deferral on the requirement to provide the minor league, enter into the agreement to provide the minor league hockey team for the 15 years. So they would still be required to provide that, and this is just the deferral for 1 year in order to enable them to do that. The tenant currently is negotiating with the Islanders to bring them back. That's been the goal of this administration, to bring the Islanders back here. We don't want to do anything that interferes with that at this time. And so what they're doing is allowing the negotiations with the Islanders to play out so that they can maximize the number of games and the number of seasons that they would come here. So in doing that, we're just giving the extra year. And then once the negotiations play out with the Islanders, then the parties will go back and discuss.
Listen, I hope that's the reason. I hope it's to bring the Islanders back. I know we have a real problem with the seating. I know that. And I know we're not going to get around that without major renovations to bring the 3,000 seats back in. So I appreciate you saying that's the reason, but no disrespect, but I think honestly it might have just been that they weren't able to find someone by now. But either way, if there's a way to get that report by Monday, my councils would be very happy to meet with you and go over it. Again, I'd like to see it like prior to the meeting.
Okay, just to clarify on that would not come from us. We would have to request that and work with the tenant to provide that. And just to clarify that, what is the specific analysis that you'd be interested in?
My attorney can speak to you about that, Pete Kleins, but from what I understand, that was a verbal agreement that they were going to be providing that. supposedly they can show that revenue in other areas might have compensated for the fact that they haven't been able to find a minor league hockey team. Possibly more concerts again, more, so I think it already has been discussed, and so we're just waiting for the actual report.
Okay, so like I said, we'd have to work with it, that's outside of our control and for that financial analysis, but we can work with them. And
Okay,
I can
and
get back to
just
your
before-
office to let you know.
Okay, just before we give the consideration of that, I think they know that's sort of what we would like and what we expect. As far as the parking garage, is there any issue with the zoning? Is that part of why they're trying to get us to agree ahead of time?
No, who's that, getting who to agree with us?
I know
State or?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to figure out what the reason would be to have this, obviously we want to see this happen, so.
Right, so it's nothing more, both parties are interested in doing it, it's that as we move forward with the application process with the state for the funding, that we would, we're in the process of either developing an MOU or a future amendment with the tenant because they have site control, where it would be located, how it would be handled, how its site access work. And so in lieu of that, we'd just like to show the state that there's continued cooperation there, that the tenant is willing to allow us to do that and to work with us on it, because they do have site control for the next, approaching 49 years on that site.
So,
Any other comments?
that's why, wait, I just want to finish one last thing. The agreement to cooperate, if you look at it, when you get it, it's subjective because it doesn't really say, like we were just talking about the zoning, if the zoning's involved, we don't really know exactly what obviously we all want to see it happen, but this kind of agreement, we just don't know exactly what we're agreeing to at this point, so.
That's exactly my point. I'm not a contract lawyer, so I'm not sure what the ramifications are or what rights we're losing or whatever. So we'll have to take a look at it. It might be innocuous, it might be positive, but it was a surprise to us, let's put it that way.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. So, good evening, Josh.
Good evening.
So I have a host of different questions, and one of them, right, what would be the financial impacts, right? And so I'm awaiting that information. And, but one of the other things that I started to question was, well, when were we supposed to be in compliance with this? And when did the clock start ticking? And so it unearthed some another issue that I have concern about. Part of this AHL league requirement was tied to the substantial completion of the Coliseum.
That's correct.
And so I asked what date was the substantial completion. And I'm told that the substantial completion hasn't even been signed off on, that there's no completion, certification of completion. And so that is concerning, alarming, and I'm questioning as to why we wouldn't have, from my point of view, it looks substantially completed. So why is it that we're still in this limbo stage?
Right, so just to give you the background on it, it was the requirement to bring the minor league team, to enter into the agreement with the minor league team was a construction commencement date condition. So by letter, the county exec waived that requirement, which he was authorized to do pursuant to section 55(1)(c) of the lease. And he did enter into that, did issue that letter relating to that. That extended the time for them to enter into that agreement from the construction commencement date to the substantial completion date, which would be the end of construction. That technically would have occurred on April 6th, which is the date after Billy Joel played at the Coliseum. That pursuant to that, there could be a certificate that's issued in connection with the substantial completion between the parties that they've made that agreement that that's occurred. In order to, one reason is technically they would be in breach if that certificate was entered into and that was the actual date and time, date that substantial completion occurred. They were in the process of negotiating with the Islanders at that time. The county did not want to impede those negotiations. It was described to us as that they would have an agreement imminently. And so that has just extended on since that time. They have been paying the full rent as if it were substantial completion. But like I said, if the goal is to bring the Islanders back in some form for a number of games, a number of seasons, it would just be impeding those negotiations to do something along those lines.
So, my question now is then, when there was a determination, a business decision, not to issue or to issue the completion, the construction completion certificate, whatever it would be called, to move out of this substantial holding pattern, right? What would have been the damages had we not done that? Would it have been a financial reward to the county?
Technically, it would be that they would be in breach at that time. There's not, with the Islanders, there's $1 million per year penalty. If they didn't bring the Islanders, they have been paying that penalty. In this regard, it's just an obligation of the tenant under the lease, and if they did not meet that, they could be breached, defaulted under the current lease.
And so what I'm trying to, just a breach in the sense that then they would lose the opportunity to lose operation of the Coliseum?
Potentially, or there's a separate provision regarding assessing liquidated, or assessing damages.
Well, that's my question. That was the question. What would be the damages?
So they would be difficult to assess at this point. This would be the first season that the AHL team would be playing there because the arena just opened, the Coliseum just opened in April. So you would probably go to Bridgeport, you'd go to where the Sound Tigers play, which is where the Islanders AHL team plays, and you'd look at the revenue coming in from that and make some determination as to how it would be here. Just in connection with this lease though, it's 8%. The way it works is it's a greater of 8% of revenue, or 12.75% of parking revenue, or $4 million, which is the minimum rent that comes to the county. So let's just say that revenue is $4 million as a round number in Bridgeport, which I don't know if that's accurate or not. The 8% would only bring you to $320,000 of that $4 million minimum that they have to pay no matter what. So it's indeterminate at this point whether or not what the damages actually would be. And to a certain extent that would be in their control, because right now they would be backfilling all of those dates. And it's very difficult with when you have an AHL team like that they take up a lot of Friday and Saturday night games. You have to hold dates many months in advance for playoffs. And so to backfill that with concerts or in the future potentially with Islander games, that could be much more lucrative for the county.
I agree 100% in terms of it potentially being more lucrative for us. Is there any other ramifications or provisions that are tied to this substantial completion requirement?
As I indicated, the rent payments and the rent payment.
Other than what we've just discussed?
I believe there are a few others.
I would like to see what those are at some point in some kind of, in a clear, concise way, as opposed to trying to read through this voluminous contract. It was a business decision that this body was not a part of, that, and it's a fiduciary issue. So I'd like to see what those are.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Those, yeah.
I appreciate it.
All right, there being no other comments, public comment, all those in favor of 482 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
To say we're yes with the condition that we're going to get that.
Oh, you're gonna get the, if you ask Josh Myers, he'll get the.
All right, Josh Myers, it's yes with the condition.
You can hold it to me. Yeah, so I will get back to you though on the date that I can get that to you, but I won't get it to you the day before.
Okay, if it's, okay. Hey, guess what? A motion, 6-0. Motion until we meet again, moved by legislator Mascarello, seconded by legislator Nicolello. All those in favor of going home, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Until we meet again. Until we meet again. Where did you check that stuff?
I'm gonna stop upstairs though, and then I'm Well, I kind of knew, but I've never had But look, after
And then we'll have no control minutes.
Yeah, I have to say, Phil handled it very nice, very nicely. Really, it's tactful. It was. But I expected a bitch slap. Your statement, I read your statement. You did very well.
She's doing a teleconference. Oh, so cute, I like that one.
So it's the fifth, right?
Yes. It's gonna be a Friday?
Oh, wait, I have to, when you guys the 5th? All right, guys, I'm getting these days for everybody. I'll email it out.
A Monday,
And so the 8th would be.
I think she just said Friday the 5th.
Oh, you know, I mean, you don't know.
What, the New Year's Day? Yeah.
Right now, I'm not going.
I went to Swazi's last year.
Yeah, but it was, I just wanted to. I mean, I would like to.
What are you going to? Are you going to?
How are you?
We have an event. Lake doesn't make sense.
That's Sela's bag, right? I think it's Sela's. Sarah, do you need help?
No, not that one, the one in Great Neck Lane on Asia Road. But anyway, she did both of them, and she was back in class, I think, 3 months later. It's like, she's really fast, and she healed very nicely.
Okay. Okay, should I include you? You know what's happening? No. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
So it was your,
God bless you.
sometimes I'm here, but I just left our car.
I didn't go to the street.
Yeah, no.
Pulitzer?
You came in.
Sir.
No, you know, I made some.
Happy holidays.
She goes,
I don't know what you celebrate.
and I go, I said, but it was.
Happy Kwanzaa too.
I wasn't.
Happy
But then I was like down, but I know it was dark, and I didn't
No,
walk
we
down.
took the trip,
Right, and I said, sure.
Right. And Sikh holiday.
Oh, yeah. When did you come back? Oh, no, I didn't. Bonnie said she had
Some act, some.
Trying to help. Oh, my amazing institution.
Yeah, she said, she goes, oh, I gotta
It's boring.
In fact, I saw,
Mara, how did you not go in the Republican?
Ms. Walker,
I
2
feel
years ago,
so bad when
that at Bali celebration.
no, but
Hicksville.
they're gonna point at you.
Really? She's right. And there's also,
I mean,
I think it's only because Muslim calendar run, some people speak out of the house. All right, you too. Both being celebrated the rest of the time of year now.
Good night,
All the calendar.
Good night, Frank.
Good night now. Go back to the tree and put some stuff down. Happy.
I'm gonna stay here. Yeah. And Leo wanted to phone number, because I took her.
God bless you.
I said you were unavailable.
I'll send you a note.
Told her I had a death. Yeah, she was, I went at the beginning and just dropped them off.
I know, she put something on.
Oh. She loves,
I didn't get to go through this stuff and.
Oh, I figured. You want to take it though, or no?
Absolutely not, right?
And just leave it in your.
No, I'm probably gonna be.
Merry Christmas and happy holiday to them.
I'll meet you over there.
God bless you.
Yeah, I'm going. Oh my God, I was like looking for.
Just go and prosper. We're all going to be very
Fried
upset.
chocolate.
Oh, God.
But these
Happy
things
trails.
have the little ones, the big bags.
The little diner?
No, they didn't have any of these.
Happy holidays to you, Miss Barnum.
Oh, little marshmallow. Thank you, Mr. Budnick.
God bless you.
Thank
Happy
you.
Kwanzaa, happy whatever you celebrate.
God bless you. I celebrate Christmas.
Okay, well, I try to celebrate a little bit of Kwanzaa.
I have most recently been enjoying some of the Kwanzaa experiences, but I'm a Caribbean American.
Well,
And
that's okay.
and we do Christmas.
Well, I love the principles that
Me too.
Kwanzaa seeks.
I love the principles of Kwanzaa.
Exactly.
I love the principles of
Okay,
Kwanzaa.
everybody in the world could use them.
Yep, they align very well with the Christian faith, so I enjoy
After you. God bless you. Happy holidays. Life with you. Good night, folks. You all have fun there. I won't say fuck you. But I will not say. Good luck.
All right, thanks. And that's about it. We're ready. Your intro that she used. So there's a reason why. All right, so what do we do? You draw the results. And I'll just. Okay, that's. I don't understand why. Doesn't seem like you put that on. Give us some numbers. I don't even know. But when did you even know? I spoke to the Friday. He never said. I don't know. Providing the helpful back and stuff like that. All that. Right. And I mean, on the numbers, bombs. Also, the bomb. Yeah. It's the, yeah. It's the same. All right, so we just need,
You know, it's just a shame. Not from that. I'm saying right. They don't know. Right. No, I think he would have. Oh, yeah. Well, see, I was gonna say, no, at least I admitted it, I question negotiation. I never had a guy, this would happen, I was just saying, let's keep the focus. You know, how it's gonna be handled. What are you getting from the state? Nothing really concrete. All right. And we don't want to vet that. Well, you know, now they're like, oh, so we're just on snow or sun. Now, look at they're going. They're just seeing. They need to keep processing. And you change your administration. Yeah. That's a reimbursement basis. They don't want to say that. And we're trying to say, we'll start with 2. For volume, that's in the, you know, we'll pay it out. Pay it back. So we only are $2 million. They're thinking more, you know, bigger. So that's the only thing that gets negotiated. And, but we need to see if I can put the and then, and now, yeah. I can't get over the way the roads are coming out. North Seabrook, the senator, down, but the senator, Menendez. Yeah. Better?
How are we gonna do that?
That's not liquid though, God.
When you compare it, they can run with something time. It's like 1.7.
It's unbelievable. I mean, if you see what amendments. All right, take it easy. Let me know. I'm going to run it through, and I'll keep it posted. All right, yeah. So I guess it wouldn't hurt if we also followed up on our end with the ABC.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, let me know.